World of Warfare presents the Luftwaffe's Last Stand. By mid-March of 1945, airmen from the 8th Air Force flying out of numerous airbases in Great Britain and the 15th Air Force flying out of 21 airbases in southern Italy worried more about flak than German fighters, ever since the Allies gained air superiority over the Luftwaffe before the D-Day invasions at 5 Normandy beachheads. Yet the back half of March revealed a mild resurgence in Luftwaffe airpower, as the Nazis struggled to stay in the fight against a superior Allied war machine. For instance, on a March 14th escort mission to the marshalling yards at Novozamki, Hungary, one of the Checkertail clan's Mustangs was forced to quickly lose altitude when his oxygen system failed. As soon as he dropped out of the overcast, he spotted 4 FW-190s and radioed his squadron mates for support. As the main flight of Mustangs dropped from altitude, the flight ran into an even larger nest of enemy aircraft. At 19,000 feet, Robert Burns drew first blood by downing an FW-190, while Gordon McDaniel, one day after his 21st birthday, snuck up behind a flight of 8 FW-190s. By this late stage in the war, what few fighter pilots the Luftwaffe managed to put aloft were woefully unprepared for combat, which made the enemy pilots little more than sitting ducks for a jump by seasoned clan fighters. As the dogfight ensued, McDaniel shot down 5 enemy fighters, becoming an ace in a single day. Recently back from leave, Harry Parker added his 12th and 13th kills to his credit, dropping 2 FW-190s in rapid succession. When I attacked an FW-190 at 6,000 feet, it dove for the deck, he recalled. I followed it down and opened fire from 1,500 feet at 60 degrees deflection and closed to 50 feet dead astern. Many hits entered the fuselage and wings of the enemy aircraft, pieces of which fell off. The enemy aircraft went out of control and the pilot bailed out, but his chute failed to open. After downing this F-190, I attacked another one at 5,000 feet. I opened fire from about 4,500 feet with 30 degrees deflection and closed to within 50 feet using no deflection. I saw hits enter the wing roots and fuselage of the enemy aircraft, which went out of control and crashed to the ground. Parker's 13th victory put him in second place on the clan's list of aces, while the 325th mission to Novozamki credited the group with 20 victories, 2 probables and 1 damaged, all at a cost of 2 Mustangs. On a March 16th mission to Wiener Neustadt, Liberator pilot Charles Andrews lost both right side engines to Luftwaffe airmen. Then I was flying on 2 engines on the left side, he recalled, and you have no idea what it's like to keep an aircraft flying with 2 engines on one side. If you keep the airplane straight, you can't go straight. So I had to fly at a diagonal angle to try to keep the aircraft straight. I had to start to get down because our oxygen was shot out, as well as the hydraulic line. Lacking confidence that his crippled plane could make it back to the 376 Bomb Group's airbase at San Pagrazio, Andrews instructed his navigator to plot a course for the island of Vis. It was just a little bitty strip that wasn't even 3,300 feet, he recalled. Well, I had dumped all my guns, everything. I told the engineer, throw out anything that wasn't nailed down to make us as light as possible. Anyway, I started in and I see this B-24 crashed at the end of the strip. Well, that cut the runway short for me in the first place. But then coming in, some Italian cargo craft pulled out on the runway right in front of me. Then I knew I was going to crash. I had no alternative. I had only 2 engines. I couldn't possibly go around or anything. I was committed to land there, and I knew I couldn't make a normal landing in that length of time. because I had to go over one plane and then try to stop before the other one. After his left landing gear hit an unseen irrigation ditch beside the runway, his Liberator rolled over on the runway. I'm the only guy who ever rolled a B-24, he recalled, because it went right over upside down. I was trapped in the cockpit. I couldn't move anything but my one hand. And the engines, those engines were run on magnetos, and that one engine was still running. It didn't have a prop on it or anything, and it was upside down and everything, but it was getting gas. And I thought, Jesus, if this thing starts on fire, we're all gonna go. Once the crew had been extracted from the wreckage, 7 crewmen had sustained non-life-threatening injuries, such as broken bones. The top turret gunner had been killed instantly, while Andrew's nose turret gunner died a short time later of internal injuries. Andrew's radio operator had collided violently with the bulkhead and later died from his injuries. His face was missing, Andrew recalled. He must have gone headfirst into something. So I lost 3 men in that crash. And I really felt bad about that, losing those guys, just young fellas. But I eventually made my way back, and I ended up in a hospital in Bari, Italy. They sent us to a rest camp after we all healed up, and I went to fly the rest of my missions, but I never forgot them. While the Luftwaffe gasped its last breaths, air leaders knew that Adolf Galland, German fighter ace and commanding general of the Luftwaffe, would put up whatever fighters he could when the 15th or the 8th went after vital German targets, as well as the Nazi capital of Berlin. While March saw only 220 encounters with German fighters, less than 17% of the number of Luftwaffe sorties flown in August of 1944. Germany's new jets, the Me-262, rose up in numbers during a March 22nd raid on the Ruhland refinery, one of Germany's last operational oil facilities. Looking out the window, recalled 2nd Bomb Group Squadron Commander Major John Reardon, I saw a big black something whiz by, and as it banked to the left, my heart skipped an odd beat or two, for I saw it was a Jerry jet-propelled fighter. Just after bombs away, on their 4th mission with the 483rd Bomb Group, flak struck the nose and waist of Con Robinson's fortress. We were separated from the group when we were hit by 88mm flak behind the navigator's compartment, Robinson recalled. At the same time, we received another hit in the waist. Jerry planes started coming into the formation, and we received a 20mm cannon round in the radio room. Me-210s shot off the right horizontal stabilizer, the right aileron and flaps. Several Me-109s made a frontal attack. We pulled away from the formation with the oxygen supply shot out and the radio operator, John Chupa, wounded so badly from machine gun fire that he died the next morning. Heading for the Russian front, Robinson was fired upon again near Breslau, Poland, prompting the enlisted men to bail out of the B-17, employing a static line jump for the wounded radio operator. After the enlisted men had gone, Robinson and the other officers crash-landed the bomber at the Russian front. The Germans fired on us with machine guns and mortars, recalled navigator James Cahyde. We ran for a bunch of trees. There was a swamp on the other side of the trees, and we dove into the water, despite the fact that they kept firing at us. We spotted a trench and noticed a red flag to show us that they were Russian. We crawled over, and the Germans started firing at us again, so finally we decided just to run for it. About 30 feet from the Russians, co-pilot Richard Craig received a bullet through the back, which came out through his stomach. Craig died of his injuries, while the remaining 3 officers were taken to an American forward base at Poltava, Ukraine by the end of the month. In the same mission over Ruhland, the Germans put up 33 Me-262s in defense of the German capital. Flying aboard William S. Strapko's fortress, Big Yank, top turret gunner Howard Wenner swung his guns on an incoming German jet holding down his triggers until the Me-262 pitched up and exploded about 50 yards out. I saw 4 jets attacking a lone B-17 from another group, recalled one of Strapko's gunners, Lincoln Babe Broyhill. The B-17 knocked down one of the enemy fighters before it flew in a crippled manner toward the Russian lines. The remaining 3 fighters came at our plane. 2 of them came right behind each other at my position. They were about 1,000 yards away when I started cutting loose with my guns. The first made a pass at 200 yards, and my tracers were going right into its fuselage. Suddenly, it went down in flames. The second came into my sights after the first had dropped. I kept shooting away because it was getting into my crosshair. Suddenly, it also spiraled down. Upon hitting the ground, it burst into flames. On March 24th, the Tuskegee Airmen flew their longest mission of the war, a 1,600-mile round trip to the Daimler-Benz tank assembly plant at Berlin. 59 Mustangs from the 332nd Fighter Group escorted fortresses from the 5th Bomb Wing, primarily to draw Nazi focus away from Operation Varsity. Part of Operation Plunder, under the command of Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, Varsity was meant to support Allied surface river assault troops as they secured a pathway across the Rhine River into eastern Germany. While Nazi forces were drawn away from the Rhine in defense of the Daimler-Benz tank plant, several thousand Allied aircraft landed 16,000 paratroopers on the eastern bank of the Rhine, making Varsity the largest single-day airborne troop insertion in military history. Originally intending to hand over escort duties to the 31st Fighter Group, the Tuskegee Airmen continued on to Berlin when the 31st failed to arrive at the rendezvous point. As the bomber stream neared their target, 25 enemy fighters, mostly Me-262s from Jagdgeschwader 7, jumped the bombers from above. The 332nd came to the rescue for the heavies, and when 7-time German ace Alfred Ahms flew across Earl R. Squirrel Lane's line of sight, the Tuskegee pilot banked his Mustang in hot pursuit. I came in for a 30-degree deflection shot from 2,000 feet, Lane recalled. He didn't quite fill my sight. I fired 3 short bursts and saw the airplane emitting smoke. A piece of it, either the canopy or one of the jet orifices, then flew off. Ahms recalled after the war, as I flew away from the bomber stream, phosphorus shells suddenly struck my cockpit. My oxygen mask was riddled and splinters struck my face. I quickly jettisoned the canopy and pulled up the nose of my Me-262 to drop off speed. I bailed out at approximately 350 kilometers per hour at an altitude of about 6,000 meters. Lane broke off his attack when Ahms bailed out, watching the crippled jet with a puff of black smoke, followed by a second impact several seconds later. Ahms, on the other hand, landed near Wittenberg, Germany, breaking both kneecaps during his collision with a tree. Ahms' March 24th crash was his last sortie of the war. While the dogfights that followed Lane's victory clocked in enormous losses for the Germans, the engagement was not without American casualties. One of the losses was Leon Woody Spears, whose P-51 lost its right wingtip to a well-placed flak burst. Looking at the wing and hearing how the engine was running, he recalled, I knew there was no way I could get over the Alps to Italy. Losing altitude fast, Spears turned eastward for Poland and the Soviet front, eyeballing a safe field near a river for an emergency landing. He soon came to learn that he was attempting to land directly between a running battle between Russian and Nazi troops. Between the two of them, he recollected, they shot my airplane to pieces. While I was flying down the river, I could feel shells hitting my fighter. 2 shot up to keep going. Spears performed a wheels-up belly landing before German troops took him prisoner. They seemed to be trying to be as nice as they could, he remembered. If they had a name badge, They'd shove it right under my nose so I wouldn't miss it. They knew that the war was coming to an end, so they didn't want to be involved in any war crimes or any cruelty. After just 3 days in captivity, the Russians overran Speer's position. I pulled a board off a window, and the first thing I saw was this huge Russian tank, he recalled. Russian troops began spraying the surrounding buildings with gunfire, prompting Speer to shout and wave at the Soviets until he caught the attention of a soldat. I had an A2 flying jacket on with a large American flag on the back. I put my back to the window so he could see it. I heard him yell, "American, American." He rushed up and gave me a big bear hug. Speer returned to his Ramitelli Air Base on May 10th, 2 days after VE Day.